It's 8 o'clock. I guess we can go ahead and start now. So, Mr. Burris, Ms. Peacock, you all come on up. And I do apologize in advance. We will never have an 8 o'clock meeting again. This just happened to happen this. Yes, absolutely. All right, well, just go ahead anytime you're ready, sir, and pull the microphone up, hit the button so it turns green, and we're ready for your presentation this morning. Thank you. Thank you again for being here this early. I do appreciate it.
Well, and good morning to each of you. We're the Library Commission, and I need to introduce to you those that are with me. Jennifer Peacock, who is Administrative Services Coordinator and Director. Tracy Carr, who is Library Services Bureau Chief and Coordinator. And behind me hiding is Lynn Burris, who is our Financial Analyst. So we're pleased to be here. We obviously do this every year, and we start off by expressing thanks for what the legislature has done for us. Last year was a really big year. You gave us a few dollars more to help fund the Magnolia database collection that is operational through our agency, but it's for all libraries and all citizens. So it's used by the schools, it's used by the academics, both four-year schools and two-year schools. It's a real resource. For years, we had been operating with a deficit in our budget for that. And we passed the hat, if you will. We would, at the end of the year, gather up monies that might be left over from grants that public libraries were unable to use. The academics would do the same thing, as would K through 12. So it was kind of a group effort for several years to keep all of our databases intact. With funding that the legislature provided last year, and we're again very appreciative, we were able to pay for the whole thing without having to pass the hat. So that was a great thing. It allowed us to use all of our funds for, in our case, the public libraries across the state. In this presentation, I want to talk to you about just a couple of specific things. As you well know, our budget request is done back in the summer, July, August time period. It's impossible to know some factors at that time when you put it together. So when the Joint Budget Office comes out with their recommendation, there's going to be differences. One example is the cost of health insurance. And we are estimating in August what it might be. And that has never been exactly. So it comes in, and it's once again come in higher than we anticipated. We have, therefore, a couple of requests that we want to ask. We need $552,124 in additional salary numbers. Our salary numbers, as put out, are short. We can, in using federal dollars, come up with the $215,328 that would go with the, as I just said, the amount of $336,796. And you'll see that in item 1 that you see, such that we need the federal money, and we have access to that to go with the state dollars to cover us. When we were had the snapshot of personnel done back in the summer, we had vacancies. Again, I'm going to say thank you. That SEC Squared program helped in resetting what salaries could be offered. That has helped in turn us to recruit people to vacancies where nobody would take the job earlier because of the pay being low. So SEC Squared helped that. But now, out of the 8 vacancies that it was showing back in August, we already have 6 of them filled. There are working people that are at the Library Commission building. And we just have these few others that we've been doing interviews for. So that is the gist of that money. And so the total request there is, as you see, it would be 61% coming from state and 39% coming from federal dollars that we have access to. Additional funding we need for the PIG. I know, I believe everybody in here knows about the PIG, which is the most unusual thing at the Library Commission. It's in the code where we provide, we being the conduit, we provide the monies and coverage of health and life and the insurance program for public library directors in the state. Why is that important? The reason we have a degreed library director in our public libraries throughout the state is because we have an insurance and a program that provides some security for the library director and the library director's family. Louisiana doesn't have this, Arkansas doesn't have this, Tennessee, nor Alabama. I'm here to tell you that it is a pride and honor that the legislature has through the years provided this so much to the extent that it has been codified. It's in the Code of Mississippi where we pay. So that amount of request is there. That makes it even. It will provide us continued security for our public library directors out in the state. So we ask for that amount. The totality of everything as you see before you is really a justifiable of almost a conduit of continuation of doing the same thing. We're not coming to you and asking you to fund a huge new program. We're not coming to you and telling you, oh, we have this grand opportunity once in a lifetime. That's not it. We're looking for stability. We're looking for your support. We're looking for and anticipating with that support us being able to maintain strong public libraries in this state. We are busy. There are a lot of people that will say, and I'm going to close with the story. There are a lot of people who say, well, in this day and time, everybody has a computer. They can do everything at home. Well, that's not true because everybody doesn't have a broadband connection at home, and everybody doesn't have equal access. You might live out in the country, be a very successful cattle farmer, and you want to know about crop rotation. You want to know all of this about new techniques and new crops, et cetera, but you can't do it from home because there's no internet that comes down your road. You go to the public library, and that's where people do. They go there to find resources. There are countless people in our state and across our nation. They may have a health problem that has been diagnosed, and the doctor told them that, you know, you have this type of cancer, heart disease, et cetera, et cetera. Big, long words. They don't know what to mean. They go to the public library and they get that kind of information. I know in the case of a specific case of a lady whose husband had been diagnosed ill and he would not share information with her. He was very proud, and it was a personal problem, according to him. So she came to the public library to find out what she could be doing to help him. So internet connectivity is very important. We're part of the governor's BEAM effort. Jennifer sits with them on that committee. We're proud to say that we have public libraries wired. So as soon as we can get the connectivity going down each and every road across our state, we'll have people ready to go there. It's a very progressive time for public libraries. The electronic books during COVID, it was out the roof. The number of people that were doing the downloads. We have at the Library Commission the account where we have purchased groups of ebooks that are available through the public library. You can go to any public library with a library card. You can get the code to download anything that you might want. That works for you, works for your spouse, it works for your children. So our request, therefore, is pretty simple and straightforward. If you have questions, we'd be happy to entertain those questions. If it's something that we can answer here, we'll be more than happy to. And if it's something we need to research for you, we'll be happy to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bibbins. So tell me, how many libraries do we have in our state now? Refresh my memory on that. Do you recall?
Remember to turn this on. 238.
238, and there's a library director and staff at each one of those?
Yes.
And that's what that incentive program for,
Mhm.
goes to pay for assistance to each of those library directors?
Yes. Mhm.
What's it pay for? What's it, just like a bonus program, or what's it do?
It's not really a bonus program. It's if we're talking about the same thing, this PIG program, it's a personal incentive grant program. As I say, it is an opportunity where funds go to the public library to provide high quality library director such that they can then internally train their own staff. So it's a program where we put a little bit in and get a whole lot back.
Okay. And has that been funded in the last few years? Or
Yes, sir.
at this level or a different amount?
No, we need the additional funding. You see item 2.
Okay. All right. Does any member have any questions for Mr. Bivens? Or any? Okay. Senator Norwood?
Morning. You mentioned the federal fund. Are you accessing all of the federal funds that may be available?
Yes, sir.
You are.
We are. We get everything that we can. It's a hierarchy in that there is an agency of the federal government called the Institute of Museum and Library Services, acronyms IMLS. Congress funds them. How they get money is we, as a state and every other state, we file reports with them and we give use statistics, data statistics, cost statistics, and it all goes together. And that is the information they can carry then to Congress, and then Congress approves a budget amount, which results in, I hate to do these stair steps, a grant to states program. And we receive dollars from the Fed under that program, as long as we participate. We also have in that program, and you've been here several years, and you'll remember, we have an MOE, a maintenance of effort that's required. We, back around 1819, failed to, as a state, failed to match the MOE, and therefore we lost about 29% of the federal dollars that we were eligible for at that time. And I'm sure your questions, based upon your memory of those times. We are at the moment funded this year such that we qualified for our full MOE. With this amount given us back into the budget, we will continue to match and we will continue to fulfill the total MOE.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Bivens. Do appreciate it. If there's anything that comes up between now and end of the session, just please get with Corbin or whoever, Christie, myself, and we'll supplement that. Your
Thank you.
request.
Thank you for this.
Thank you
opportunity.
again. Thank you. Is that what it is? Okay. Okay, next we up have MPB Educational TV, and we have a new person here with us. If you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us about your request this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it very much. Senators, thank you for allowing us to come in. My name is Royal Ailes. I'm the new executive director of MPB. I just took the position in September. I come from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I am having the time of my life. So one of the best decisions next to marrying my wife I've ever made. So this has been a great experience for me. I have with me our COO, Anna Neal, our CFO, Alicia Harris, our Director of Education, Dr. Tara Wren, our Board Chair, Dr. Mackey, down at the end. So a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. I'm going to hit on a couple of highlights of successes and our challenges, just to begin with. Over the years, we've had a great relationship with the Mississippi Department of Education, and we continue to do so today. We're working on a program right now. It's called our Digital Education Network, DEN for short. What we're doing is we have created and we are installing a state-of-the-art conferencing network, video conferencing network in schools across the state. We've picked 28 schools, rural schools, for this equipment. What this is going to do is it's going to deliver free distance learning platforms that will provide classroom instruction by helping teachers and giving them a tool to teach math, science, the languages such as Spanish and arts to districts that do not have certified teachers for those classes. So if a school in the Delta doesn't have a Spanish teacher, but we have a school that does, we can utilize that teacher in that school to teach the science, the Spanish class in that school that's in the Delta. We're also been asked by MDE to help them with the Mississippi Literacy-Based Promotions Act for the third grade reading program. And what we're going to be doing with them is we're creating an app that will help the teachers connect with the kids constantly for strong reading groups. We're also going to air on our 5th channel a video series of reading buddies that teaches the science of reading. We're going to produce another video series for dyslexia therapy. So if you have friends or family that has a child that's dyslexic, this is going to help these parents help their child build their confidence in their reading. And then we're going to create a podcast for teachers that they can talk about best practices among themselves. MPB's overall purpose is to educate. Now that takes on many different forms, from documentaries to community-led meetings to programs that we do on radio. And one of the great programs that we have on our radio is called Southern Remedy. We have doctors from the University of Mississippi's Medical Center where they talk about things that help keep Mississippians safe and healthy. We have documented testimonies of where someone was listening to that program, talking about an issue that they were dealing with, went back to their doctor with that information, and it saved their life. So we know that we are connecting with our listenership, and we know we're also connecting with our viewership. I'm proud to say that over the last 3 years on our radio network, we've created 20 different programs and turned them into podcasts. And this is how well we're connecting with our listenership. We've had 1.7 million downloads of our podcasts. 1.7 million. So we are really connecting with our listenership and also with our viewership. Now, when you tie that mission with our relationship to MEMA, you understand then how big of an asset you have here with MPB. We work closely with MEMA as part of their emergency management network. MEMA relies on our ability to connect with everyone across the state, particularly when there is a crisis. We provide media pool feeds for all of MEMA's press conferences. Now, some of you have mentioned to me in the hallways of how MPB was a big part of your listening when Hurricane Katrina struck. Some of you have talked to me about how important it was during COVID, how important it was during the water crisis just recently here in Jackson. We provide all the pool feeds for the governor's press conferences. We do this through our network of 8 transmitters for TV, 8 transmitters for radio, and we have a 12 microwave dish network across the state. Every time you get an alert on your cell phone, every time you see it crawl across your TV screen when you're watching MPB or some other program at home, or when you're in your car and you hear that horn go off in your radio that the National Weather Service is about to make an announcement, that comes through our backbone at MPB. We have the equipment that was put there by the National Weather Service. So every alert you get comes to us that they deem that they need to make, and they have total access over our area. We have some recent storms that have run the northern part of the state, some tornadoes. I mean, it seems like the tornadoes are moving to the Delta from the plains. In Columbus, we have been operating for quite some time at half power there. That's because our equipment in our sites is past their age of life. They're over 20 years old. When you have a transmitter, it's only built to last 15 years, and we're over 20 years already with this equipment. We've been band-aiding it. We're back to full power in Columbus, but we don't know how long that's going to last. That's a problem. Last month, some other storms ran through Biloxi. We went off the air down there. Now, we didn't go off the air because of a tornado or high winds or lightning strike. We went off because of barometric pressures that took our microwave dishes down. And we couldn't alert the listenership of what was going on in that community. So we're on the edge of frailty here with our equipment because it hasn't been kept up. We haven't been able to keep the equipment renewed. We're just making patch work of all of our equipment, band-aiding it as we go along. I can't guarantee you guys that the next time a hurricane comes through Mississippi, we're going to be on the air. I can't guarantee you that because of the condition of our equipment. It's old, it needs to be replaced. I've had a lot of conversations with MEMA's executive director, Mac McCraney, and he supports our request for asking for infrastructure funding. And he asked me to share this quote with you. I fully support, I quote, I fully support MPB's request for infrastructure upgrades. MPB is a vital part of MEMA's emergency management team. As an agency, we rely on their ability to get important information out to the citizens during an emergency. Any financial assistance the legislature can give to MPB for its upgrades of its infrastructure benefits all of Mississippians, I end quote. I got a little show and tell for you. That piece of equipment sitting over there in that foam bag there is called a tube. I'm going to take you back to the 60s and 70s. I'm pretty old. I may not look it, but I'm pretty old. But you can remember your TV sets back then had glass tubes in the back. And when Dad would turn the TV on, it would take a minute for it to warm up before the picture would come alive. Well, that's 1950s technology, 1960s technology. We used to use those glass tubes in our transmitters, great big ones. In the 90s, we went to that tube, that copper-based tube. That is 1990s technology. 4 of our 8 transmitters still operate on 1990s technology. And there are no more of those tubes anywhere in the world. The manufacturer of those tubes, based in the UK, notified MPB last year that they're not going to be manufacturing that tube anymore. We bought 5. We're down to 4 already within the year. It's like your car when you drive it off the lot. Is that car going to last you 50,000 miles or 300,000 miles? There's a lot of high voltage electricity going through that tube, and we don't know how long they're going to last. We have 1 tube for 4 of our sites per site. Once that tube goes out, we can't replace it. We're off the air permanently. That's how frail we are in updating our equipment. We have to update and renew the solid state equipment so we can continue to provide the services to Mississippians that you guys expect us to deliver. And it's important that we do that. If you'll take a look at your handout to our impact of Mississippi, on the very back page inside, there are 4 pictures I want to refer you to. The first picture on the left, top left, is a picture of a generator. Now, whenever a storm goes through the area where our towers are, we automatically go to backup power because we can't rely on the power service, the power companies to keep us on the air because they go off the air they can get knocked off. So we go to backup power instantly. That transmitter and most of our transmitters are over 25 years old. And we need to replace them. The picture to the right at the top is of a transmitter, TV transmitter that uses that tube right over there. The lower left picture is of another transmitter as well. All of these are over 20 years old. And the lower right picture is our radio transmitter at one of our sites. Again, it's over 20 years old. Mr. Chairman, last year you asked Alicia during this meeting of how much money it would take to fix the whole thing. And she quoted you 22 million. Well, today it's 23 million. Supply chains, inflation, it's all raising the cost of everything. So it may seem steep, but I can't keep the equipment running with a Band-Aid. We've got to continue to put in new equipment so we can keep the things going that need to be going. We've been meeting with our legislative budget office on this issue, and they have suggested to us that we ask in our request that the funding be moved to an unbudgeted account so we can draw down the funds as we schedule the towers to be worked on and replace it with the equipment. The funding process will keep us from having to come to you every year asking you for year to year funding to upgrade this equipment. It's that important to us. It's that important to you. It's that important to the folks of Mississippi. I'm also going to refer to you, if you would, there's another handout, another booklet. If you'll refer to that, it gives you the list of every site we have and the equipment that is required to be upgraded. And it also gives you the prices per site. So if you look at Biloxi, just for instance, we need a new radio and TV transmitter. We need upgrades to the tower. We need upgrades to all the cabling that's out there. If you look at Oxford, same thing there. Bude, same thing there. And Greenwood, just to get started, all that needs to be replaced. One last challenge I want to bring to you that we're faced with, and this is our fault. We are falling on the sword on this, but we need to bring it to your attention. I'm asking you for a payroll adjustment to our budget of $750,000. When SEC Square started, we filled out all of our paperwork for our budget. In March, we did that for our FY23 budget. It listed all of our vacancies in our current filled positions that totaled a payroll of 6.2 million. In August of this year, we did it again for FY24. However, we left off the vacancies that are not filled. Therefore, we did not include the annualized total of those vacancies, thinking that it would auto-populate from the FY23 report, and it did not. Therefore, we have shorted ourselves in our payroll budget of $750,000. Well, we are asking you to help us to true that up and make it whole. I'm not asking for pay raises. I am just simply asking that we true this up so we will remain whole in our payroll for our staff. If we don't, because we created this clerical error on our part, if we don't, then I'll have to implement RIFs. And we don't want to do that. And then our last point that I want to bring up to you is we need some money reappropriated for FY '24. Last year, you guys gave us $350,000 for a documentary series on Medgar Evers. That is in the process of being produced now, but we've had to slow it down a little bit because Marley Evers has been sick. We need to keep that money flowing to get the work done. You also gave us $700,000 so we could digitize some film and tape out of our library downstairs. And we're still working on that. That is a process. But to keep it going, we need to reappropriate this to FY '24 so we can get the work completed this next year. In closing, I just want to say thank you for your support. Thank you for your help. We are there for the people of Mississippi. We're there to help educate. We're there to let them know when the storms are coming through and how to stay safe. The state funding that you give us helps us to get to every corner of Mississippi. There's a lot of places where folks can get what they need from Memphis to Mobile and New Orleans, but when you go to the Delta, they need us. They need us. And when you go down south, they need us as well. I know some of you guys may not get us on your satellite dish, but we're always there on the antenna. We're always there on the cable. We're there in places that really count for our citizens of Mississippi. Our foundation continues to do a great job for us in helping to raise funds, but they do not raise enough funds to take care of all of our need at MPB. But we will continue to work with our foundation to raise more dollars for our programming efforts as we move forward. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer, and any of us are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation this morning. So you answered two of my questions. The Medgar Evers documentary, that's in the process now, and you just need that reappropriated again, correct? And the same for the digitization. Has that process started, and how much longer do you think that's going to take?
Oh, it's going to take a full year. It's a process because it takes a lot of work. We're going to have to send a lot of this stuff off to get it processed so we can put it on our website and store it digitally. It's a bigger process than I think we thought, but it is a process.
Okay. The towers, I know we did appropriate 2 million.
Yes, sir.
And then reappropriated another 1.5. What towers have been completed or worked on since last session, I guess?
If you look to this little handout here that we have, we are taking care of Biloxi right now. We are wanting to get started on Oxford. We've also worked on the Meridian and Boonville. So those towers have been approached and worked on with that appropriation funding, but it hasn't taken care of all the needs that are there. McHenry has been
McHenry is done
completed.
now? Okay, good. So I know we've been appropriating money every year for this. And okay. Gotcha. So according to the handout you have, you're asking for about 23 million and change for all the towers and all the maintenance, put into an account, and then you draw down on that. How long do you think it would take to complete all of these repairs?
We anticipate 5 years.
5 years. Okay. And then what are you doing to ensure that those towers and maintenance is being performed on those, so we're not in this position again 20 years from now?
Our goal is once we get all of them completed, we will have a rotating cycle every year, every 15 years. This one gets done, then the next year that one gets done on a constant rotating cycle. So we're upgrading the equipment every 15 years.
Okay. Switching topics, do you have any vacant pins? Have you filled any pins? And is that why the increase in the salaries? Is that the issue?
You want to answer that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We had about 12 vacancies that were included in our original FY '23 request after SCC Square went live. And then since then, of course, at the time, the executive director pin was vacant. It was a lot of our larger salaried pins that were on there. And we have recently filled at least 7 of those. There are 3 more still on active recruitment. It hasn't been time to get the applications returned yet.
And that increase has been communicated to either Corbin or Max?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions by any member? Senator Norwood?
I think last year was some concerns about the roof leaking and damage. Has that been addressed?
It is being addressed right now. It's not completed yet, but it is being addressed.
So have we, I mean, are we minimizing, I guess, the damage?
Yes, yes, we are. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
Senator McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to clear everything up in my mind here. So what is your actual request? Not the 23 million to repair everything. What is your actual request with all that you've added today? Just in general. Because
Two requests, 750,000 to shore up our payroll and the 23 million for our infrastructure needs.
So I just need to throw this sheet away that has your request of 16 million.
I'm sorry,
I just need to throw this sheet away that's got your request at 16 million.
16?
Yes.
The budget.
I'm asking about your budget request today. And that's what I want to know what this one is.
So we would add the 23 million for the towers that we are requesting for the unbudgeted fund, as well as the 750,000 in salaries, and that's 37,750,000.
So back at what I'm at, your budget request was 16 million per our budget office. And you're telling me 16 million plus 37 million?
No, sir. 16 million plus the 23 million for in the unbudgeted fund for towers, and the 750,000 increase for the salaries authority to give a total of 37 million.
So 37 million is your total request today.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator McCall. Any further questions? Well, thank you for coming this morning. We appreciate it. Make sure you take that thing back with you. We don't want any issues with security this morning. So, thank you. Okay. We're going to take about a 10-minute break before our last presenter. Dr. Benton, I see, and Dr. Taylor are both here. And so we look forward to hearing you. And we're going to give you plenty of time to present your budget this morning, but we just need about 10 minutes if that's okay. Give you guys an opportunity to set up as well. Okay, I think we're all ready to reconvene and hear from Department of Education. Dr. Benton, what a pleasure it is to have you here this morning. Thank you. Dr. Taylor, if you want to introduce Dr. Taylor, let him say some words this morning. It's totally up to y'all. And Dr. Gavin, always a pleasure to see you again as well. So I think we're ready to begin, and you know, we do have your handout. We do appreciate that. So thank you.
There we go. It's a privilege to be here with you this morning. And as you said, I'm joined by our new State Superintendent of Education, Dr. Robert Taylor. His first day was actually yesterday. So he is in Mississippi, and we're proud to have him. And also Dr. Felicia Gavin, who you know, who is our Chief Financial Officer, Chief of Operations, and Chief of Staff. And then Holly Spivey, our Director of Government Relations, is also with us this morning. Did you, Dr. Taylor, did you want to make any comments before we start?
Yes, just wanted to say good morning to you all. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I'm certainly elated to be back home in Mississippi, and I look forward to working with you guys. Just the continued support that you give education in Mississippi. I can tell you that from afar, I've watched the things that Mississippi has done, and you're doing some tremendous work. Our goal is just to continue that. So we look forward to the working relationship.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, our plan is to walk through the presentation we have with you. We take this position of return on investment. We appreciate greatly the appropriations that we have received in the past and look forward to the one in the future. And we want to be good stewards of those resources that you give us. So we're going to give you an update on that, and then we'll move into our request for this year. In the handout that you have, you see that we always begin any presentation we make, regardless of the stakeholder group, with what we believe, what is our vision and the mission of the Department of Education. And as a staff, we are committed to ensuring that the boys and girls in Mississippi receive a world-class education that prepares them. Sometimes we refer to it as the 3 E's: for enrollment in college, for employment, of course, or enlistment in the military, whatever it is they dream of that they're able to do, and then ultimately to become tax-paying, productive citizens in our fine state. We do that through a strong system of policy and support directly to districts. The 6 goals that you'll see on the next page should look familiar to you. Those goals have been in place for about 8 years, and they truly drive every decision that is made at the Department of Education. You see those on our state board agenda each month. You see those as we have internal meetings or external meetings, how we allocate our resources, how we deploy our supports, so on and so forth. And I would like to draw your attention to the word in bold within each of those goals, and you'll see every, each, and all, because that is something, that's our, what we call our compelling why we do this work, to make sure that there's not a student in Mississippi or an educator that doesn't have the support that they need to be successful. Now, as we look on our return on investment, where were we a decade ago? In the first slide, you will see that were not where we needed to be or wanted to be. At that time, we were rated on all national measures at either 50th in the nation or with an F if it was a letter grade, not what we were capable of. We had not shown the nation, our taxpayers within our state, our potential. Our graduation rates lagged, and our NAEP scores had us at the bottom. We had what was termed as an honesty gap. Our state assessments reflected that we had positive growth and outcomes for students. However, on national measures, we weren't keeping pace. So fast forward a decade later in 2022, and look how that has changed. That's not a reflection of one person. That's a reflection of collective effort. Most importantly, on the ground in schools across our state every day, but also through the combined efforts of our the wisdom of the legislature, the efforts of our staff at MDE, and you see how that trajectory has changed. Mississippi on national measures is a leader. We've moved to a rating of C, 35th in the nation. Our graduation rate is 88.4. In fact, we will share our graduation rate during Thursday's board meeting, and we've continued that upward trend. Our NAEP scores, Mississippi is #1 in the nation for gains on 4th grade reading and math, and holding steady in 8th grade, and have posted the most improvement for 3 consecutive years. On the next slide, you'll see a slide that we're really proud of. On the quality counts measure, Mississippi was rated as the 2nd most improved state for narrowing the gaps between our low-income students and our higher-income students. That's really important for Mississippi because we do have a large number of children and families that live in poverty. So we're proud to be closing that gap. And you see there how we compare to 4 other states and that were also showed improvement. The next slide you have is just another view of our NAEP progress. And what you can see there between the gold and the blue bars, it shows a 10-year trend. And you can easily see there that in 4th grade reading and math, we are right at the national average in terms of proficiency rates. That is, not only have we made progress, but we have sustained progress despite the disruption in learning from the pandemic. In 8th grade, we remain steady, but we still have a lot of work to do in 8th grade. And some of the priorities that we share are focused on just that, how we can narrow those gaps in 8th grade. We're proud of the progress in 4th grade, but we surely don't want to lose any ground as students matriculate to the middle school. Everybody loves trophies, right? And when you look at the next slide, that's a great visual where you can see Mississippi's lead in 1st, as I've already mentioned, in the nation over a 10-year trend in 4th grade math and reading, and 3rd in 8th grade math, and 7th and 8th grade reading. So while we are nowhere near where we want our students to be, we see that compared to the national level, we are holding our own, but that just gives us the motivation to press even harder for our students. Early childhood. In terms of early childhood, when the Early Learning Collaborative Act was passed in 2013, since that time, Mississippi has been recognized as one of only 5 states in the nation for the quality of our program. And the quality of our program is defined in terms of ratio of students to teacher, the teacher qualifications, the professional development that we put in, and more importantly, the outcomes of our students as they complete those programs. Sticking with early childhood, and I'm going to move from our youngest learners all the way through our high school students in this presentation. You see on the next slide that compared to students in our other pre-K programs within our public schools, our early learning collaborative students continue to post greater or more positive outcomes, with 65.1% of our students meeting kindergarten readiness as compared to 61.5. You might be wondering, well, what's an other pre-K? That could be a number of things. It could be a Title I funded pre-K. It could be a special education funded pre-K. It could be a combination. It could be a local funded. What that program doesn't have are the supports, the coaching supports and so forth that go along with our early learning collaborative program. The map is a great picture of our progress over the past 10 years or so. You know that it's the anniversary of our Early Learning Collaborative Act as well as our Literacy-Based Promotion Act this term, 10 years since the passage. But you see how the steady gains there from 11 in 2014, when the first programs opened their doors, to today, we have 30 collaboratives. We also are in the middle of an RFP right now, and we will have 35, excuse me, and we will have others that join. We're real excited about the additional $20 million that was appropriated last session. And with that, we've opened 11 more early childhood programs. So let me tell you what that translates into children. With the early learning collaboratives, we have the ability to serve about 10,000 4-year-olds And with the additional 20 million, that's another 1,000. So that's around 11,000, or we're getting closer to that 30% of eligible students. So that's great progress. When you look at the next slide in terms of kindergarten readiness, you see that our boys and girls on the red pencil there, that we have about 32% of our boys and girls that enter kindergarten not scoring at the readiness level they need for success as they move through the early grades. At the end of kindergarten, thanks to the heroic and tremendous efforts of our teachers, that improved to 58%, with more than half of our schools gaining 200 points on that assessment from pre to post test. Now, I do want to pause right there to say we are still seeing some lingering effects from the disruption caused by COVID. Our youngest children, if you think about it, these boys and girls were 3, 4 years old, 2, 3, 4-year-olds. And during that time when they were isolated at home, there was probably less language at the time, less exposure and interaction to others, and just opportunities to visit and get out, plus the impact of the mask, muffling sounds and making that difficult. So with that said, we are doubling down our efforts there. Third grade reading. You can see that over the 10-year trend, or 10 years or so, we are back in 22. If you look at the blue bar there, we are back with an increased level of expectation to where we were when we started. That's a good sign, because that just shows that we've recovered from that disruption in learning. Again, such a testament to the hard work of educators out in the field every day, and frankly, communities and families too. The next two slides that you have there just are a trend of progress on our state assessment. Now, the way that these are presented here is in the aggregate. You have, when you see English language arts or mathematics, that's a combined score there, considering 3rd through 8th grade assessments, as well as the high school end of course. So in English, if you just look, because it's a lot of there to see, if you just look at the gold and green bars, I think they tell the story really well. You can see the gold representing pre-pandemic and the green, our first assessment following, that was considered in the accountability model. And you can see that our children have rebounded, thanks again to educators in ELA, in mathematics, in science. And then in history, you notice a significant increase. And I do want to add the disclaimer there that we had a new assessment in history. So anytime you bring in a new assessment and then folks figure out where you are, you see a bigger jump that second time once the teachers understand that. Plus, I certainly don't want to take away from the work of amazing teachers across the state in our social studies area. Career and technical education. When you look at this next slide on concentrators, now you see the trend going a different direction, and I want to explain that one to you. This is the first time that I think we've shared this during a budget presentation. But career and technical education concentrators, that's students who take at least 2 courses in the same CTE field of study, and they're concentrators. So this shows who completed it. We did have in 2021, due to COVID, fewer students that enrolled in some of our career and technical programs. And remember, some of our programs are shared with community colleges, and there were differences in registration periods and so forth. So we had a little bump, a hiccup there, if you will. So if they didn't get to enroll, then you're going to see that the next year with a declining in completion. We also have some students that are exploring areas, and they may try a class in one field. Maybe it's FFA, we'll say one of those agriculture fields, and then they decide, no, that's not what I'm interested in. I want to move to the health science arena. So that might be a little hiccup there, but we're tracking on this, but I did want to be transparent and share that. The next slide, again, lots of graphs there, but let me just refer you to the 3 bars at the end. You see the upward trend, and simply what this shows is that in terms of advanced placement courses, we have more students enrolled in advanced placement courses. We have more tests taken, We have more tests passed, and that equals money for families because our students are earning more scholarships and they're earning college credit. Keeping with that theme, our next slide is on dual credit, and you can see there that we have a huge increase. Oh, since 2016, we've more than doubled the number of students that have access to and successfully complete dual credit with 13.8, almost 14% earning one or more college credits before they enter into college. So we're really excited about that for our students across the state. Moving up the continuum with our ACT achievement, Mississippi is one of the only states in the nation that provides, through your appropriation, the administration of the ACT at 11th grade for all of our students in the state. And on that first administration, we had a slight increase of 1/10 of a point from the previous year, and it's 17.4. Our graduating class of seniors was in the aggregate 17.5 for this past year. And then the super score, that's a fairly new posting from ACT. You can see it's 20.7, but that's where students get to claim the higher of their subtest scores, and it rolls up into that super score. And that's very helpful to them as they move through and or to enroll in college and scholarships and so forth. I do want to press here to say that we have pushed really hard this year with our counselors and our principals and our superintendents around the ACT fee waivers, because we want to make sure we're taking advantage of those, because our students have up to 3 times that they can take that at no cost if they are qualified for free and reduced lunch. So that's an advantage, and it gets back to that equity piece. ACT work keys, your investment last session. I thought you'd be interested in seeing where you are. Mississippi, our first administration to be 2 percentage points shy of the national average, I think is amazing. As you see there, 60% of Mississippi students compared to 62% nationally scored in the silver, gold, or platinum on ACT work keys. And we look for that to do nothing but increase. So that is tremendous. And there were almost 18,000 students that took that work keys on the first administration. Our graduation rates continue to upward tick. And as I shared, that will be reported at the board meeting tomorrow. Graduation rates increase, dropout rates decreasing as they should. And then finally, our district grade improvements. Where are we there? This year, we have 87% of our districts that scored a C or higher. Our goal is for 100% of our districts to score C or higher. We have the 12% that we continue to focus our efforts on helping them help themselves and their communities, because at the heart of it all are our students in those schools and districts. As our schools, you see 81% of our schools were rated C or higher. How did we get these returns on investment? Well, part of our strategy rests with professional development, as you'll see on the next slide. We provide a rigorous series of on-demand professional development to educators across all of our content areas. And it's not just the core subject areas, it's areas such as, it may just be advanced placement strategies, how you can engage students to a greater degree, mental health, a whole range of activities, because we assess the needs of our teachers and ask them, where do you need some additional supports? And that's what we provide and respond. Now, through COVID, we learned that we could be more efficient in terms of our delivery and actually reach more educators. And we do that through a hybrid approach. We provide online access after school, during their professional learning communities, their planning times. They can have independent study through Canvas. So it is no longer one size fits all for sure. And I think that has been greatly received, and hopefully you're hearing that. But you see the numbers in those last 2 bullets that almost 10,000 educators touched just through those either face-to-face or live sessions last year alone. So we couldn't do that without the appropriation from the legislature. Professional development is one of our core strategies, as are instructional coaches. And you see here the breakdown of our coaches. We have over 100 coaches and boots on the ground, I'll use that term, out in our districts providing supports to teachers, assistant teachers, principals, and there's in a lot of areas, as you can see here, digital learning. That was really important. When we place devices in the hands of students and teachers, they needed to know how to integrate them in the classrooms to maximize instruction, or it's just a tool that's not useful. And literacy, early childhood, mathematics, that is the new appropriation that you gave us last session of $5 million. And because of that, we're going to be able to provide and replicate. Our goal is to replicate the good work that's taken place in literacy in terms of mathematics. And you can look at the NAEP scores and other measures, and you see that we have work to do in math, not just Mississippi, but as a nation. So, and you know what? That's also a teacher shortage area. So our legislative priorities on the next pages on slide 29, you see those. We are asking for a slight increase in our early childhood programs of 1.5 million. This will allow us to provide more early childhood coaches. That has been a recipe for success. And the more we can provide, the more we can touch additional classrooms. And in terms of digital learning coaches, now currently, those coaches are funded with our ESSER dollars. We are receiving positive feedback from our schools and districts about the helpfulness of having someone walk beside teachers and help build that confidence and make sure that those devices, those computers, tablets, whatever the device is being used as it should be to meet the standards and integrate the standards. So we're trying to reach sustainability. And that's where that request is coming from there. So stability of the effort and initiative. Literacy-Based Promotion Act, we're asking for a slight increase there of $381,000. We have requests to continue and expand our access to the science of reading training. We also, while we are posting positive gains on NAEP and on our state assessments in terms of ELA at 4th grade, we still are very concerned about students that still need that support as they move up into middle school. And you see that with our 8th grade NAEP scores. School improvement. We don't have 100% yet of our schools C or higher. So we are asking for an appropriation there of an additional $630,000 to make it 1.2 million to provide coaches. We know coaching is working. If you get the right coach, build that relationship in a district, then you're helping build capacity in that district. And that's where that request is coming from. I think you have seen the benefits of our professional development program through the numbers and participations, through feedback that I hope you hear in your respected areas, but more importantly on what the data are telling us. That Principals Academy, this one was something that we have requested in the past and and had not been appropriated, but we're asking for this again. We have used our stakeholder groups, our advisory councils, been talking with superintendents and principals. Is our current orientation to school leadership program really meeting the needs of our principals when they are any administrator, assistant principal, when they come into their role? Or do we need to rework this? Make sure that we have day one ready training opportunities. So we are ready to do that and roll that out with the help of our 6 RESAs. They're excited about it. It's actually content developed by some of the best superintendents and principals and assistant principals in the state. So this would allow us to do that. Our community-oriented policing services. We will have at the after the February board, approximately 200 SAOs throughout the state. We had requests for 75 more than we could fund. So this appropriation would allow us to maximize the services and be more responsive to our districts that are asking and trying to shore up the safety programs in their schools. Our Office of Assessment, we have not been able to really have the test security support. We maintain test security, of course, but we really would like to expand that through the reestablishment of our Office of Test Security. We just need more hands on deck, quite frankly. And that's what that money would help us with, that request. The state assessment system, we've added work keys, as you are aware. And there are some additional costs with some of our assessments, and that's where the increase of 2 million comes from. Our accreditation review timeline, we have a process right now that allows us to be reactive as we get calls that of concern from stakeholders, by either parents, community, or educators around accreditation standards. This would allow us to be proactive and conduct on-site, random, and more structured accreditation visits. So that's where that request comes from. And of course, we are asking for full funding of MAEP for students across the state of Mississippi. On our final slides there, in summary, on slide 36, you see the bottom line. You see that the request from the Department of Education is for $3.2 million. That's a slight increase of 9% from the previous year's request. Where's that the majority of that request coming from? It's to fully fund MAEP. And you see reductions in some of our other programs because within the agency, we are trying to be very lean. And you see that on the next slides on 37 and 38. And if I could just, it's just the breakdown of where that request comes from. And again, you see that the majority of it is related to MAEP on slide 37. But when you look at 38, less than 1% of this $3.2 million request is tied to operations and administration at the Department of Education. And I think that's really important for you to know as our elected officials and for the taxpayers across Mississippi to know is that the funds that we are requesting are in direct support of the students and educators in the state of Mississippi. And that's very important to us as an agency. The remaining slides there are just a further breakdown, just a more granular look at our appropriation request. And as you flip through that, you can see the MAEP student costs, and Dr. Gavin's team does a tremendous job getting that information in every year and then processing that. So we're grateful to her team for that. But that concludes my presentation to the board. And I welcome any of your questions. And Dr. Gavin, would you like to add anything or? Okay. Dr. Taylor? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Benton. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Talk about MAEP, and this may be for Dr. Gavin. The base student cost has increased, I think about $700 to about $7,200 per student. The majority of that's from the teacher pay raise. Is that correct? And then some inflationary measures.
That is correct. I think $530 may be associated with the teacher pay raise if we built in, as well as the cost of inflation.
And
what's,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's not included in this is what we recently got after we approved after the board approved the MAP number is the increase in PERS. So we have preliminary calculated that, and that number is about $92 million.
92 million for the PERS increase?
Yes, sir.
And with the implementation of the teacher pay raise, maybe Dr. Benton have we reduced our teacher shortage at all with that? Have we have any more applications, or how is that?
We still have a teacher shortage.
Like,
We have a
teacher.
yes, sir. We absolutely have a teacher shortage. We're seeing some improvements, but it's really dependent on where you are geographically. We still have a ways to go. We have we call it the MTR, the Mississippi Teacher Residency Program in 5 of our universities, and that's producing about 200 additional teachers a term. We're excited about that. And I will tell you that we are in discussions with the Department of Labor to develop and formalize a teacher apprenticeship. And we look for that being a very positive. We have one already in the state through the Teacher Academy on the coast with Pascagoula Gaucher, where they have an agreement and they work through their community college there, from the school district, the community college, and then on with William Carey happens to be their partner in that work. But the more we can expand that, I think the better. So we're making inroads, but not enough yet.
What can we do you think, to increase our numbers there? Is it just getting the word out, basically advertising more? Or?
You know, that's a great question. Let me tell you what we learned. A couple of months ago, we presented to the board the results of our teacher survey. It went out to almost 6,000 educators across the state completed. And they said it wasn't a job fair that attracted them. And it wasn't just the pay, but they are very excited about the pay raise. Now, that's definitely a good thing. But they said the main thing was word of mouth from teachers and community members reaching out to them. So that was really, I thought that was great to know. And we have pressed that pretty hard in our presentation across the state for district leaders and teachers to be champions. Be champions, tell your story, and be the best advocate for the teaching profession, and that's our teachers. So, yeah, that was very interesting. And if you all would like a copy of that, I'll be glad to email that to you. Holly's taking our notes over there. Yeah, because that's good stuff. And I think it helps districts too know what's the best way to address this shortage. And teacher academies. More districts are embracing that notion of a teacher academy, because if they become approved by the Department of Labor, there are funds with that. For example, in Pascagoula Gaucher, those students spend part of their day in an elementary classroom and actually are paid for that time while they're earning credit. So it's just really incredibly exciting.
What about the winter read loan repayment program? Has that been utilized by any of our newly admitted teachers? Or do we need to increase the funding in that? Or is that just about right?
We probably need to get you the number of how many, if you want to know how many are taking advantage and how many are requesting that we can't. Would that be helpful? Did you get that, Wayne? Oh, Holly. Okay. Thank you. That's a good question.
The national board certification, is that a budget enough? Is that money enough? Do we have more applicants than we have money for, or do we need to increase it or decrease it?
To my knowledge, we are funding all that applicants have requested. We've not had a request for additional, but let me get that number too, because that may incentivize others to complete that program. It's a wonderful opportunity. And, you know, we have expanded that to recognize national board counselors, national board teachers, dyslexia therapists, and so forth.
Yes, the funding currently, as it exists today, is sufficient. Mhm.
And I know we kept funding for the MSIS database and so forth. Is that fully implemented? Is that done? Are we?
So we're currently in the process of rolling it out. Oh, but that is not scheduled to be completed until September of 2024. We will be asking for reappropriation of the state piece of that, about $3 million.
Do you member have any questions for Dr. Benton or Senator Hobson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Benton and others for being here. Two lines of questioning. One is related to the teacher coaches and others that you're sending to the districts. And I think sounds like that's a good thing. That's been very positive. And what's your comment on how that works as opposed to some of the other programs that the districts do? I mean, is it better? I guess I'm asking you a tough question. Is it better to get those teacher coaches where you pinpoint areas where they need, as opposed to what I think probably happens in some of the districts where they just go out and contract with an agency? I mean, it's very common for our districts to enter into contracts with vendors that go in and do it. And they're the same companies, and I see them, you know, over and over again. Some maybe do a really good job, some not so much. I don't know that it's measured as well as it probably should be. It's more anecdotal as opposed to really measure. Are you measuring your coaches and their performance really well? And then how do you compare that to, are the dollar, I guess what I'm asking, are the dollars better spent by giving them to you and you can pinpoint the areas where they need to be, or just giving it to the districts and them hiring the vendors that they think they need?
Well, we certainly stand behind our coaches and the quality of services. And let me answer that one first. We evaluate their services annually in terms of outcomes of the students that they serve. In other words, if you're in Benton Elementary School and you're working there, how are your students performing on the third grade assessment, the kindergarten readiness? We look at that by coach, but we also get input from the teachers and the administrators in those districts. But we're tracking outcomes on all of our coaches. So that's that question. Now, in terms of the quality of the external providers within districts, I think that varies. You know, what we have pressed really hard with, especially our schools of improvement that are receiving those federal dollars for, and that's what they're using primarily to fund the external providers and coaches. Be a good steward of the money. The external provider works for you. You need to make sure that you are tracking outcomes for external providers. I mean, we talk to our superintendents and federal programs directors and principals about that in all of our meetings and ask the questions. How are you tracking the services that you're receiving? If you are going to have a contractor come in once a month, that's not going to accomplish what you're trying to do. The dosage matters, the frequency matters, what they do matters. And then if a coach comes in, whether it's our coach or an external coach, and you don't follow up in between, then you've lost an opportunity. You know, you're not going to see outcomes and a return on investment. But it is a difficult question, and I think it ties to how you implement what you're choosing to do. Now, if today it would be difficult to provide a coach for every school in the state of Mississippi, because that would mean we were pulling some of the best teachers from in front of children when we already had shortages. Quite frankly, we're seeing that with math. You know, our math coaching, we've been a little bit slow, because if you have a shortage in math teachers. And if I take your math teacher, that's the rock star math teacher, then you're down that teacher. So what do we do? So we're having to look at a hybrid approach, but I appreciate the question. And that can be a driver to continue to ask those hard questions with our districts as well.
Yeah, I think it needs to be. And I know it's not an easy answer. I recognize that. And just another hypothetical would be District 1 or District A has a team, a vendor that they've hired, and I hear this sometimes. The trustee says, well, are we getting good results from this vendor that's coming in, you know, once a week or once a month? And the superintendent may say, sure, I think they're doing a good job because we're seeing our scores improve, you know, 3% or 5%. We think that, you know, and what they don't know that you might be able to compile is there's a District B that's getting 25% increases in gains because their vendor's better, or they've got a better person coming in, or I don't know. It's a difficult thing to do. I recognize that, but I just feel like I think sometimes these vendors and these, you know, contract coaches come in and do an excellent job. And I think sometimes I'm not so sure, but I don't know how to measure that. And I think maybe MD will have to be, I think it's something MD can look at, is how do we assess these coaches, and are you getting bang for the buck? And I think trustees of the districts want to know, are we spending our dollars wisely? Because they're relying on often the superintendents, who I think, you know, their hearts I know are in the right place, but sometimes they don't have all the data to measure vendor 1 versus vendor 2 versus vendor 3. And I think our districts could improve a lot if we could find ways to get the best contracts, because I know a lot of districts, probably every district in the state, relies on some vendors to help in certain areas.
Right, and I will go ahead and tell you this, the Office of School Improvement, the plan is to be part of a pilot project with Edunomics, which is a national group. I'm just drawing a blank right this moment on the university they're tied to. I think it's Brown, but I'm not 100% sure, but Edunomics. And that pilot project would focus on resource allocation in our failing schools. How are you using the resources you're given? What's your return on investment for that? So that's a step in that direction. And I suspect that'll yield some data that could be critical in defining a process like this.
I think that's, well, you just said it, the magic term or terminology is ROI. What's the investment you're making with all the people that you're hiring to help out with? What's the return?
Yep.
Are you getting your bang for your buck?
Yes, sir.
So that's good. I want to hear more on that. The second line of questioning, or really it's one question, I think. First, I guess my lamentation would be the same thing that you said, is we don't have enough teachers out there. We're short on, everybody knows it. It's national. It's not just Mississippi. This is a problem in our country. But you know, one thing you may not remember it, but I've been passionate about is distance learning. And I passed the bill years ago, and I keep saying, why aren't we using our good teachers more often in the classrooms that can't find those teachers? I don't think our schools are using them enough. And I think there's got to be better collaboration and utilization of these teachers that are very good to get them. And if, you know, it's better to have a teacher it's better to have them in person in class. I fully acknowledge that. But if I don't have a physics teacher or a chemistry teacher or a advanced math teacher, I'd much rather have them on the screen teaching my kids with a monitor in the classroom. And I just don't think we're utilizing that. I know there are broadband issues, but in a lot of places we're getting better there. So I'm not picking on you, Dr. Benton. I know it's just something that I feel like we need to be better coordinated in Mississippi on doing that. We're not doing as good of a job, especially right now when we're short on teachers. Let's use every tool we've got, and that tool is not being utilized. I know it's not. Nobody's got to tell me that because I see it in the districts I represent. It's not being utilized like it should be.
Right. And we are having those conversations internally. How do we get better at it? How do we, and have engaged our superintendent's advisory as well and our principal's advisory. How do we solve this problem? Because you have a teacher. Senator Norwood does that. The children in Senator Norwood's district deserve it just like your children. And I will tell you that we are partnering with the MPB to try to maximize those services. Mr. Ailes reported before we came in about a partnership that will expand the cameras and infrastructure in some 20+ districts in our state and schools. So we're excited about that, but it's a drop in the bucket and we have more to do. As you talked about.
Please, and I'm not picking, I'm not picking on you. Please, let's ramp that up. I've been saying this.
Yes, sir.
Senator DeBar's heard me say this probably every year since he's been the subcommittee chair. I've been saying this for years. Why aren't we using the technology that we have? There's no reason other than the districts that may not have the broadband service. And I acknowledge that, but there's no reason we're not using tools that are out there the way that we need to. And I get frustrated every time I think about it and when I hear they don't have a math teacher, and I'm like, they've got access. There is a way to have that math teacher. And I've seen the contracts and I've actually reviewed the contracts where they contract with another district. And sometimes they're satisfied, sometimes they're not, but there's got to be, we're far enough along into this. We ought to know how to get the best teachers in front of our students.
We may have to serve as a broker in some of that, quite honestly, because
and it may be that, you know, your push, it should be, if I were a district superintendent or trustee, I think one of the things that I would probably do is say, well, why don't I have an advanced math teacher for my children in my district? There's no excuse anymore. I mean, other than, again, broadband, and I know it's not perfect, it's not the best, but there's really no excuse for us not to have solid teachers in front of probably 95% of our children in the state of Mississippi.
But you've taken us right back to those 6 goals in the word in bold. So
yeah, but I thank you. Look, I had to, you know, lament for a minute about our teacher shortage and the inability to get our kids the best that they can get. But I know y'all are working. I'm not picking on you, I promise. But it's
but
just
you do
something
know
we got
we're
to keep
working
on
on it, and
we got to
keep
keep it at
trying.
the forefront.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
right.
it seems like every year it just gets pushed. It's talked about and then it just gets pushed to the back burner, and it's frustrating. But anyway, keep working.
Cameras are going up in schools, and we'll see an improvement there. But thank you for pushing for kids.
Thank you, Dr. Benton. Appreciate everything
Sir.
you do too.
Mhm.
I truly believe that we get the children to school, we can educate them. But my concern is about the children that we can't get to school with a 52% state truancy rate. And I'm looking here at on page 38, where we're talking about school attendance officers, and that's, I guess, a salary increase for the school attendance officers. Now, and I think that there were some concerns about the school attendance officer, going back to what Senator Hobson, some of his concerns regarding another matter. I guess the lines of chain or the lines of authority in terms of them being in the school building, or them being, are we hiring more school attendance officers? or this to give those that we have additional resources?
This request is to maintain the services that we have. I know there's some bills that have been dropped or proposed that do include salary and other things of that nature, but this is to maintain the current services. Now, we currently have 125-ish school attendance officers in the state. I will tell you that there is a lot of turnover in school attendance officers for a variety of reasons. It's salary, it's location, it's traveling, just a variety of issues that we find with our exit interviews. But we actually had a meeting yesterday with our 3 supervisors for school attendance officers in the state, and we're looking at our particular discussion yesterday was around the data and different things that they report for homeschooling. And we also talked about their needs and making sure that everybody had their supplies, their travel, and so forth. And at that point yesterday, they felt like they were in a good spot with what they needed for this point in time in the year. But those conversations, we recognize that we would love to have more home visits. We know that's going to take additional dollars. We know that the closer they can be to the students in the districts, the better the services would be for students, just to be real honest with you. I've worked with school attendance officers as a principal for years and just found their work invaluable to having children at school, because, you know, if kids aren't in school, you've heard that old adage, they can't learn. So it's really, really important, as is chronic absenteeism. You know, that's something that only escalated during COVID and the fear, and then the interruptions with having to close school for quarantine. So we're trying to rally and recover from that, but it's a work in progress there for sure.
And I guess one of my concerns is because I'm a stickler for parental accountability and responsibility, holding parents accountable. But it's very difficult when we see the district, the state not doing what they can with the resources that they have, personnel or dollars, to make sure that they're holding up their end of the bargain. So, but let me ask you this in, I guess, in the essence of time, with the ESSER dollars, and I'm coming back to that, because I know that a lot of the school districts are not spending those dollars. Well, I don't say a lot, but some of the districts are not spending those dollars. And those expiration dates, one was 2020, that one expired 2023?
We had the first round expired September 2022.
22.
Mhm.
And so could we get a report on that, basically, who has expended those and who still, and if they fail to expend it within the time frame, do those dollars revert back to the state or go back to the federal government?
Yes, the federal government did give us the latitude to request an extension on the liquidation of those funds. So we had about 8 districts that did request a late liquidation on ESSER 1, and then ESSER 2 doesn't expire until September of this year, and then ARP dollars expire September of next year. So they still have a little time, and they've drawn down about 50% of ESSER 2, so they are spending those funds.
And now, I guess my final question, are we accessing all of the federal dollars that's available with state, the State Department to support education in the state?
Oh, absolutely. We don't leave any federal dollars on the table if we can help it.
Access them and you expend them.
Are you referring to the ESSER dollars or just in general? Yes. Mhm. We have all of our title funds. We apply for as many grants that come our way.
Just want to make sure.
Mhm.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wood. Any further questions? Back to ESSER real quick, Dr. Gavin. Do you anticipate getting any more ESSER dollars anytime soon, or are we about tapped out on that?
We've not heard anything definitive at this point, so not sure what the federal government has up their sleeves, but we don't anticipate at this moment receiving any more ESSER funds.
All right, well, thank you. I do appreciate you coming before the committee. I would like to get this presentation before the full education committee, if you would be so inclined at some point. I think they need to hear all the good news that the department's been doing and spread it, because it's really not out there. And, people always talk about Mississippi, but really you guys at the department are doing a great job, and we've been partnering with you to make that happen, and we appreciate that. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and we wish you well. Thank you.
Yes. Sir. What would you, yes, sir, what would you like to know? In Leon? Okay, what would you? I will talk to Dr. Amarita Tail and get her to get, yes, sir. Senator DeBar, did you all get